Good morning, YouTube. We are going to try and get our very first garden tour of the year. This will be the June garden tour, and there is a storm on its way, so hopefully I can get done before it gets here. So, instead of wasting any time, let's just get right into it. Beginning over here by the front steps, we have strawberries. Nice little bed of strawberries. We've already been harvesting some. These are June bearings. I don't remember the variety. They've been here for a few years. But they have expanded. The original bed ends like here. And all of these, it keeps planting the runners out. On the other side of the steps, this is actually a garlic bed. But these are my daughter's strawberries in the block holes. And then the garlic, sadly, we lost about half of them last December when the temperatures were horrifically low. But I didn't have them mulched enough. But most of them are still doing all right. I had planted some chamomile in the block holes this year, but they were very small and they immediately dried up and died. The asparagus got insanely tall. We didn't cut as much as we should have because all those weeds couldn't see what was growing until it got really tall. The tomato bed. There is a very large mullein that was there last year, growing out of a block hole, so it's going to flower now. But it'll get even taller as it grows the flower spike. And then there's another little mullein, which appears to be a first year. So I'm leaving those. Wonderful medicine. I've got dill growing in these block holes. They need to be weeded out, or they need to be thinned out because they germinated very well. And then we have the tomato bed, which of course is weedy because everything in my garden needs weeded. But the tomatoes are looking quite sad and small. There's one hiding behind the mullein leaf, but still very small and stressed. Very small and stressed. I took all the rest of the tomato starts that I had that were extra, and I put them all in the bed. And then I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 extra places that I had no tomatoes for, that I put some seed down. But then I found some volunteer tomato plants in the cucumber bed and the other bed down there. So I will probably just wait till they get a little bit bigger and transplant them over, because that's going to be faster than waiting on those seeds. Even though they were hybrid seeds, which is supposed to have a shorter day, it was like Better Boy or something. It's still probably be a better head start with whatever's growing in as a volunteer. So that is the plan for the rest of the tomatoes. Otherwise it would just be a waste of space. In between the tomatoes on the house side, I planted some beet seeds for a second round. And in between the tomatoes on the front side, I planted some lettuce leaf varieties. They haven't germinated yet. Hopefully they will. In the block holes, I have some tulsi that I just put in there because it just germinated. And then I have some basil in those holes down there, but I need to get more started. So then next to the tomato bed, on this end we have calendula. I have some volunteer potatoes that popped up out of my compost. And then we have several watermelons. They are small, but if we zoom in, like there's one. That one is just popping out. But there's a total of 7 coming around. The fence here is going to hold the cucumber, which is also up, but it's small. Right, there's one. These cucumber are tanja, and they are supposed to get quite massive. So for this whole wall, which is about 18 feet, I have 4 planted. Only 4 of those cucumbers. They're supposed to be massive. I had looked up varieties that are the most productive, and I found a little article about these cucumbers. They're never bitter. They produced for a much longer season than regular, sometimes until frost. And they are quite big. They have very uniform, straight, it's like 8-inch-ish, 8-9-inch long cucumbers, supposedly. It's like all the things that a girl would want in a cucumber. So I had to go to Etsy to order these seeds, but they are growing. I'm excited. I hope that it's everything that this article said they were, because I haven't had a whole lot of luck growing cucumbers on this side of the garden, which ironically is weird because it gets more water over here than they did over there. But they just haven't, the ones I've grown before, they don't live very long, produce like 1 or 2 cucumbers, and then they die. So hopefully these will be much different. I'm very excited for them. But we're gonna see, we're gonna watch. But there are 4 and they are already growing. So yay! And then across the rest of the front, we have zucchini, which have just started coming up, and 2 little yellow straight neck squash down at the end, which has not come up yet. Coming over to the perpendicular bed, which is mostly cherry tomatoes and sweet potatoes. On this end, where there's no fencing, this is bush beans. I've got Cherokee wax beans on this side and dragon tongue beans on that side. They've been planted. They just got planted, so they haven't sprouted yet. Next to the bush beans, there is a Kajari melon. And there's another one that's really small to see. Some beets are growing. Those are the first ones that I planted. And then we have our cherry tomatoes and our sweet potatoes. The sweet potato slips seem to be doing all right. These tomatoes never got dug up. Even though there is an egg under each one, they are doing just fine. They're happy. There's 7 of them all together. There's a few more beets down on the end. Now, the original plan for cherry tomatoes, there are 2 blueberry, 2 pink bumblebee, and 3 sunrise bumblebee. There are more sunrise and more blueberry in the big bed because that was the extra starts that I had. And who knows what these volunteers will be. I don't really need more cherry tomatoes, but I'd rather have a lot of extra cherry tomatoes than no tomatoes at all, so in the bed they went. And this little volunteer in the black hole is lemon balm. Hanging out at the end of the bed, we've got comfrey, which is new. This is the original lemon balm pot. It's related to mint, so it spreads even when it is in the pot. This is rosemary. I'll be honest, I did not start that from seed. I bought it as a transplant. I kept killing mine. And it's in a pot because most rosemaries are not hardy to my growing zone. New little bed at the bottom of the back steps. Here's a mint. It's also a transplant that I bought. It just says mint. I don't know what kind of mint, but both my peppermint and my spearmint died, so they didn't like where they were growing. They say it's impossible to kill mint, but I can prove them wrong. So we have a mint. It smells more like peppermint, I think, but we're just going to let it grow and fill that out as it goes. This will get more light and a little bit less water than where the peppermint was before. Yeah. This first trellis is the Blauhild beans, and the second one is the rattlesnake beans. Having a little trouble coming up. Now for these beans, I kept it really simple. I just scraped off the grass and then planted in it. I didn't till it, I didn't add compost or anything. And they're taking a little longer than usual. So we'll see how they do. I might have to replant some. We've got a couple that have sprouted, which isn't a lot. Because there's good 42, about 42 bean plants planted on these 2 trellises. They definitely are taking longer, but they're starting to sprout. So we'll see how well they do. And then there's the corn bed, which I talked about previously. All saved seed from last year because I didn't get any good ears. I only got a few half ears, and I saved all the seeds. They're small. They don't look good. Nothing has sprouted yet. We'll see if any do in the future. Rain has started. This is a perennial bed, which I had some mullein pop up in last year. But there is my marshmallow, which I actually moved it this spring, so it'd be easier to harvest. And then there's hyssop growing nicely in the center. And along the back, we just put in some very small echinacea starts. The pumpkins are doing nicely. I still need to thin them, but they're getting kind of big over there. There should be one in each corner. Hot peppers are doing okay. And then the carrots need weeded, of course, because everything does. This is the first bed that I ever had. Oregano has taken over most of it. We've cut it back some, but there's still more to cut back. And then in the front there is some lavender, more weeds, and this wonderful bushy thing in the back there is yarrow. And then our dandelion bed, haven't done much with that yet. The figs are growing nicely. In this bed, I actually put some blackberry plants that I bought in there, although I don't know if they're alive. But along the back, across those posts, we put string up because we planted southern peas. Now, other than the mullein in this bed as well, there are acorn squash planted, but it doesn't look like they have germinated. Then we have our potatoes and peas. If you look closely, you can see the pretty purple flowers of the peas. They are starting to flower. We haven't gotten any pods yet, but they are flowering. These are King Tut peas. And then the potatoes, I can't remember if I planted any Yukon Golds or if it's all just red. These were planted last summer. As I harvested, I planted new ones. And then they waited until spring to come up. But the peas go along that whole wall there. Some of them need tied up because they didn't stay when I put them up there earlier. Actually, I think I do have some Yukon Golds in here because I saw a flower on a potato. Where is that? Because that flower there in the middle, it's very small. It's kind of yellowish, but the red potatoes have purple flowers. So yeah, there's a few Yukon Golds in here. The sweet peppers are still pretty small, but they're hanging in there. And then we've got sugar snap peas in a couple lines across the back. And they've got some fencing there. It's kind of hard to see, but it's there to grow up. And then we have another large oregano bush, a volunteer sunflower, and the rest is onions. Let's get a better shot of that. They're really too small to see. They're just barely in there.
Yeah.
The dry bean bed already is starting to germinate. That's much faster than the pole beans on the arches. But I have added string to these posts to help keep the pinto beans upright. And then my crazy grape and raspberry plants. Didn't quite make it before the rain got here, but it's not very hard, so at least we finished. Thanks for coming along with me today. I hope you enjoyed this very first garden tour of the year, and may the Father bless you.
Shalom.
Shalom.